Hi, my name is Shaquille and I'm the Research Fellow at Precision Cornea Center. The purpose of this video is to give you a good understanding and approach to the pupil exam. This video will be broken down into two parts. In the first part, we will discuss the pupil anatomy, we'll talk about general observation, and we'll discuss the light reflex. In the second part of the video, we will discuss the swinging flashlight test and how to document your findings. You can think of the pupil as the aperture of the eye, and the iris is the diaphragm which controls the size of that aperture. The pupil provides a pathway and regulates the amount of light that's hitting the back of the eye, the retina. If too much light enters the eye, it can cause glare and discomfort. So that's why the pupils will normally constrict in a bright environment. In a dim environment, you want more light to enter your eyes, and so the pupils will dilate. Normally, the pupils are black, and that's because the retina is absorbing the light. However, sometimes you can notice a pale or a whitish pupil, especially in the elderly, and this is usually due to the formation of a cataract. It's important that you understand the anatomy of the pupil pathway to understand how the light reflex and the swinging flashlight test work. The pupil pathway starts off at the retina. Then the information travels to the optic nerve, to the chiasm where the nasal fibers will cross, then to the optic tract. At the optic tract, the pupil fibers branch off before reaching the lateral geniculate nucleus, the LGN. Therefore, lesions at the level of the LGN and distally, such as the optic radiations and visual cortex, will not affect pupil size. The fibers that branch off the optic tract reach both pretectile nuclei of the dorsal midbrain. Both pretectile nuclei receive input from both eyes. In addition, each pretectile nuclei sends axons to both Edinger-Westphal nucleus. Essentially, the eyes are connected, and that's why when you direct light into one eye, it causes a bilateral pupillary response known as the direct and consensual response. The fibers then leave the Edinger-Westphal nucleus to travel along the third cranial nerve to reach the ciliary ganglion within the orbit. Finally, postganglionic fibers will travel to the pupil. So now that we've gone over the anatomy, let's start talking about the pupil exam. So before you examine the pupils, it's good to dim the lights and have the patient focus on a distant object. The reason you want the patient to focus on a distant object is so they don't elicit the near reflex. The near reflex causes changes to the pupil and it affects the accuracy of the exam. Next, take a pen light or a muscle light and shine it below the patient's nose. And take a good look at both of the pupils. You want to make sure that the pupils are equal in size and that the shape is round. If you notice a difference in the pupil size, this is called anisocoria. You can measure the size difference using a millimeter ruler. The key question in anisocoria is whether the anisocoria is greater in the light or in the dark. This tells you which pupil is the problem. For example, anisocoria greater in the dark means that the affected pupil is not dilating as it should, and so therefore the smaller pupil is the abnormal one. Anisocoria greater in the light means that the pupil is not constricting as it should, and so therefore the bigger pupil is the abnormal one. Anisocoria can be physiologic, but usually in physiologic anisocoria, the size difference between the pupil is less than 1 millimeter, and the degree of anisocoria is the same in the light and in the dark. So now that we've touched over general observation, let's talk about the light reflex. As previously discussed, both of the pretectile nuclei receive input from both of the pupils. And so when you direct light into one of the eye, you will get both a direct response and a consensual response. So let's watch this video and observe the direct response and the consensual response. Look at the direct response of the right eye. It's called the direct response because we are directly illuminating this eye. As you can see, the pupil is quickly constricting in response to the light. This is normal. Now let's examine the left pupil. Again, we notice a brisk direct response. But now turn your attention to the right eye as we shine light into the left eye. you will notice that the left eye is also constricting. This is the consensual response. The direct response and the consensual response should be equal. So that concludes part 1. In the next part, we're going to talk about the swinging flashlight test and the relative afferent pupillary defect. So stay tuned for the next video, and I hope that was helpful.